Hello and welcome to today's interview with DETS, the Digital Energy Technical section of the SPE. My name is Patrick Pattay and I'm heading the digital transformation part of DETS. And I have two fantastic guests with me today. It's Martin Ostermayer, a serial entrepreneur and investor from Germany. He has run some big companies. I mean, if you still remember that you downloaded ringtones to your mobile phone, he was one of these people making this great. And on the other side, I have Murray. Murray is running Eigen, a very digital company in the oil and gas industry, producing some fantastic solutions that I love. I worked with them myself. It's really for operations. It's about high frequency visualization. It's about collaborating with colleagues. So on the one side, somebody who started a company, made it big, has a very digital technical solution for the oil and gas industry. And on the other side, an investor who's not coming from the oil and gas, but has a lot of experience and knows how it works and will give us an outside view. So what we're going to talk today about is how do you start up a company with digital, ideally in oil and gas? And what I always heard is that if you want to start a company, if you want to have money from somebody like Martin, you need a business case. But is that actually true, Martin? Is this the first thing you're looking for?
No, I always say that I'm looking for three things if I invest in a company. First one is team. Second one is team. And guess what is the third one? Team. So, I mean, that's of course not everything at the end of the day. Even a great team has to come up with an idea and where you think as an investor, it's not completely stupid and it's that they can make money with it. However, that's also my experience. The first idea will never be the idea where you will be successful. So it's a long journey, and there will be a transformation from your idea to the reality.
Okay, first idea is not what you're successful with, and the team counts. How does that sound to you, Murray? Was that your?
So, I mean, it's a great point, and I completely agree with the point of team. That's kind of how Eigen started, in that we found ourselves with a team and an opportunity. What's hard is it's the chicken and egg situation, because in order to get a team, you need to convince people to come on board with you, and you've then got an interim period where either you're not getting any money, but you've got to pay them somehow, or you've got to convince them to work for you for nothing until the point that you get investment in. So it's a very difficult chasm to cross initially, to get that team on board and put them in a holding position until you can fire the starting gun and get some investment in. So that means that you've either got to all be doing something else in the meantime to pay your mortgage, unless you've all got a track record of having done this and actually don't need a day job. So if your team is young, if they're very young, you might be lucky in that their income requirements are very, very low. If you hit the middle band where someone's been working for a while, they have a house, they're probably married, they have kids, their income requirements are quite high, and it's extremely difficult to have them on board in a holding position. However, they're often the guys that you or girls that you want because they have the track record behind them. Then if you come out the other side, you've got the folks who've probably done it once or twice before and actually don't need a daily income, and then they're probably all right to come on board on a startup. So on the one hand, I completely agree that the team is everything, but on the flip side, to get that advice, it's difficult to implement in practice.
Okay, but fully understand. So what keeps them on board? Is it the vision of getting amazingly rich one day, or is it that they love the technology? What keeps them on board?
I mean, in my experience, if you have a successful startup, you build up a great culture in your company, and the people love working there. They love what they do. They are passionate about it. They see the mission and the vision of the company. And this is what really makes people happy, that they have a meaningful job. This is, I mean, at the end of the day, Of course, there needs to be a paycheck if you're not the founder and if you're not having lots of shares in the company. That's for sure. But it's more the meaning today than the money.
That sounds almost like out of the school book, right? You give them a vision. Wow. I trust you. Okay, so it's and it's maybe true. I mean, all of us love to have a vision, know what we're working for, know what it's good to, but it doesn't pay the rent. So if you have to fill that gap somehow, how did you fill the gap?
We started Eigen having taken the team from the back of a number of projects already. So we recognized the opportunity that we had this team. It was already funded up to this point, and we had customers saying, can you do some more with us? The difference was it was a team of individuals or people employed by other companies. And what the clients were wanting was just, can we just give you a single contract? Rather than going to all these different, a bit like getting your house built, someone might say, well, you need a plumber and an electrician. Someone just goes, look, can I just deal with one person and you sort it all out? Well, that's what Eigen did for digital, really. So we formed the company then and said, okay, we'll just give us the contract. We'll sort the delivery for you. And so we kind of already had the team, they had the track record, and people were saying, we want this. So for us, it was like, okay, do we go with it? We love doing this. It's great fun. There's a demand. So we went for it. So we didn't have to live with that interim period where we didn't have, well, we had a team and no money.
That reminds me somehow of one thing that I've witnessed with a few young companies where it's like they have to choose, and then there is the trap that they can step into, which is consulting business, where you're just selling hours. So maybe very shortly, how did you manage to not fall in that trap and go for a big idea like Eigen Ingenuity?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that was a huge risk for us. We had a period around 2009 where we had a lull in projects, and we had some time, and that was when we started work on the product. And I'd had this vision for this software for a while, and we had a chance of winning a project coming up. And so if we got our heads down now and started going, there was a chance that we would be able to implement it on this project coming up, and that risk paid off in the end.
Lucky for you. So Martin, if you have this company now and they are a great team and they are exactly at that point, like now we need the money, either we go like for consulting or we go for the big vision. What is that other ingredients that you're looking for where you then advise them rather go that way, or where you join them and make the other way possible?
And I mean, if I look as a business angel at a very early stage to a company, I mean, today, at least in the, let's say, tech world where I'm coming from, the internet tech world, you get funding even with an idea and with a team. So not huge fundings maybe in the beginning, just maybe a few $100,000, but this keeps you going for a few months. So our advice is always focus on the product and don't do consulting. I mean, of course, we see companies that they were bootstrapped, they were doing this already for some time. They earned their money with consulting, and it's okay. They have a foot in the door with customers. However, it's always very difficult to get out of this consulting business and really to focus on the product. But for us as a tech investor, consulting, it's not a VC game. That's not interesting. So you really need people who need to focus on the product.
And I think I hope it's great news for a lot of young people out there which have a great idea that is around technology, and that is a product. But I believe I just heard that in your tech world, in the internet world, things are so short cycled, so that you can get money that keeps you alive for a few months, and 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months later, you can show already a result that convinces people.
Yes.
Now, at least from my feeling, the oil and gas industry is a very slow moving classical industry, and in 3 months you not even have managed to talk to anybody in the procurement department to get your fantastic product sold. So it might take you a year or 2 years. So what could be the answer if you are in a world that has so much longer cycles?
I mean, we also invested in a company that had an AI solution for fast-moving consumer good retailers. And if you ever talk to the big grocery chains, they are moving really slow, I would say, similar like oil and gas. And we had sales cycles for 15 months, 18 months, 2 years, 3 years. And
wow.
However, we were so convinced of the technology and of the team, and we knew that this was a long way to go. So we invested in this company at the end of the day, together with other investors, more than 10 million euros before they got the first revenue. So it depends. If you're really convinced that they can change something, that it could be something really big, you can get, and if it's a good team, then you can get also a lot of funding, but it requires a lot of work from the founding team to convince investors.
And that would be the trigger for my next question. So if I now imagine I'm sitting there, I have that idea, I'm in this oil and gas industry, I'm not yet at the point where Murray is, or I don't even have the luxury that actually my clients pull me in. And I now have to create a story that is so convincing that somebody like you, Martin, sticks with me for years. What help do I get? Am I talking to a team coach? Am I talking to a banker to build the perfect business case? What is the best advice I can give me? Who's the best coach I can get me?
The best coach, I think, I mean, you as the founders, you should first of all know what is the best product, and you have the vision, what really solves the problem, and then you have to talk to your potential customers and really tell them why you think you have something good. And I think out of every conversation you learn something, because some say, I don't think this will work because you haven't thought about this or about that. I mean, you as a founder, you have to get out of the door and talk to customers. If you're just sitting on your desk and thinking about how I tweak it here, I tweak it there, and then it will go, you will never make any progress. So we always say, leave your office, get to your customers, talk to them. And the same is also true. Go to investors, talk to them, tell them what you think your idea is, what your vision is, what you want to solve. And if you get from your customers always negative feedback and from investors always negative feedback, maybe it's not the best idea, or but you will always find some nuggets that will help you to improve.
Cool. How is that in your case, Murray?
So it's completely true that you've got to get out and talk to people, and I think that's something that I had to learn more coming from the more technical side. But what was difficult was who to talk to and how to get an audience with them, because in the oil and gas industry, as in any big industry, there's different layers of people. There's people right next to the actual physical work that's being done, say offshore, or the drilling, the reservoir, right up through management layers. And then there's all the departments onshore and commercial and things. The number of people involved in a decision is high. So say you've got 10 people and any one of them can say no, and they've all got different reasons for coming to it. So you end up needing to talk to all of those people. But the question is, how does one get an audience with the people at the top? Because they are bombarded, they're absolutely flat out. So you've got to have a really compelling reason for them to give you some of your time, some of their time. And you need to use that wisely when you do get it. So one of our biggest challenges was raising the level at which we had conversations. And it's very, very difficult coming from coming from a young startup, because when we started Eigen, I think I had maybe 8 years experience. So technically very strong, but no track record of anything, no reason for a CEO to open their door to me and listen. And I think looking back, that would have been one of the most valuable things we could have had if we'd have been able to go to an investor and brought someone on board, is someone who could open those doors for us and coach us in how to use that time wisely, what to say, and what are the people at these different levels looking for, because they don't really care about the technical stuff so much. What they're looking for is, what will this deliver for the business? They want the value, they want the long-term look ahead in where are you going to be in 5 years time? Like what are we getting on board with here to sign up?
That's an interesting experience, but what I was just wondering for, because that's what I heard from you, Martin, before, it's this solve the problem. I mean, it's this, don't run around with a hammer and look for a nail, figure out that it's a nail and then find the hammer. And that is, to my understanding, would be something where you have to talk to the blue collar workers. You have to talk to everybody until they then finally can talk to the CEO. So how do you get that mix done? How do you manage to talk to all different levels to identify the problem, to prove the solution, to get the money? How did you do that, Murray?
Okay. Went to conferences, was actually doing, when you finally do get a customer, you learn so much, because then you're actually solving a real problem. That makes a huge difference. And the classic curve of crossing the chasm, that well-known book, and you get the early adopters and almost your angel customers right at the start who are willing to take some pain because they have a problem that is so unique and you can solve it. When you get on board with them, your learning rate really shoots up then, because they're motivated to solve the problem, and they're completely honest about what the challenges are, because they're trying to solve it with you. If you get to talk to people who don't really have the problem but have spared you 20 minutes, you'll tend to get fairly high level problems, sort of general stuff that it's hard to distill down to something that you're going to put time and money behind. And also in heavy industry, everyone's problems are quite different until you get to the well-known individual building blocks, like, oh, we need a database to store some data. Those problems are well solved though. What people are struggling with is the higher level problems, and often about how they can increase the throughput of their organization, for example. There's many causes for work going through an organization slowly. There's not just one thing, and there's no magic that you can do. So it takes then a while to unpick those problems and to find the details of what is it that we need to solve this. So I don't think there's a magic solution other than getting access. And I think back to Martin's point as well about being clear on the vision and talking to people, having someone on board who can help introduce you to people, for example, getting into other networks, is so valuable.
Yeah, this is also, of course, what we are trying to do as investors, leveraging our networks to our founders. And sometimes if we don't have a good network, sometimes we try to bring in people like in the advisory board who have a good network, and they're getting some shares in the company if they help. So sometimes they're let's say shortly retired CEOs from big corporations, and who have this network and who are interested to do something and to work with the young companies. They are very interested.
That's it. And the other point that occurred to me is, again, going back to the importance of team. While you as the founder is going around having these conversations, someone needs to be looking after the team and the technology that's being developed back at home, and to be covering them, because you can't do it all yourself. You need to have a lieutenant or someone who you trust that will run things in your absence, keep things going in a good direction, but also that then you can debrief with and talk through.
It's the same for then if you're going out for funding. I mean, if you're the one who is also running the operations and you do the funding rounds, then you can forget about operations for a few months.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
And it might actually be even vice versa. You might be the technical guru and you hand over that job to somebody else. So I love the idea of having the team and being reflective in the team and saying who is best at what and do what. But the one thing that I now take away is that if I sit there with this great idea, it is not the great idea in singularity. It is this work it, have a lot of interactions, shape it, get it, grind it down to the point of where you have a clear connection between a problem and a solution. Probe that often enough to make it workable before you really have something where you build then a product around. Does that sound about right?
Totally. I mean, we also say, I mean, in the tech world where I'm coming from, you're building your MVP. It's just basically not the final product. It just shows the idea more or less to potential customers, and then you can learn from that if they really like it, if they love it, if they want to have it, or if they don't care about it. Because sometimes we see people developing for 2 years and get out there and experience, oh, nobody is interested. Then we say, okay.
Thank you so much for that comment, because I feel almost like somebody tapping on my shoulder and waking me up, because I almost moved already into this old classical oil field mentality of have it rock solid and proven before you do a first step. And now comes this more agile approach again. Thanks a lot for that, because I think that really helps, but it's still that balance that you need. And the MVP isn't kind of like the first thing you just throw out. It is your testing of your idea, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, there are different ways of MVP. Some are more closer to real products, but normally it's just, first of all, testing the idea. That's there's a book called Lean Startups, and they show you tons of ways how to test your ideas without building the real product. Very helpful.
So how was that for you, Murray? I mean, did that work that quick? How long did that take you to build that MVP, to test your idea, to?
Yeah, we were lucky in the sense that when we started, the web was really still quite novel. You know, the iPhone came out the year after we started, and so the whole idea of apps was really new, and so we were able to get stuff working early enough that was exciting for people. But when you look back, the functionality was quite basic. I think that's harder now because there's so much more expectation on what should be possible in an app from day one, and how it's got to look fantastic, it's got to be slick, it's got to be fast. So I think we were lucky because we were developing at the same pace or a little bit quicker than people were getting used to new technology. And it was we'd started in that transition between your computer at work being better than your home computer, whereas now your home stuff is better than you get at work often. So we were able to fail fast, if you like, put stuff out, and people were still happy with it because it was better than what was going. So we learned as we went.
Still, how long do you think it takes in our industry? Is it that if I start up now, I have to be prepared to survive 3 months, or is it still like I have to be prepared for 3 years?
I think you need 3 years if you're going to be in the oil and gas industry. The sales cycles, I'd say about 18 months to 2 years, realistically, because everything's done in, as a minimum, yearly budgets. So it has to be in the budget for the following year to go. There might be some small funding for a little bit of R&D in that year, but usually it goes, get on the radar, prove something in the first year if you're lucky, get on the budget for the second year, then get a decent sale in that second year that you might be able to survive on. So as a minimum 2 years, but given that you've got to build something,
so okay, in a nutshell, you need a great team, you need a solution to a problem, you have to build an MVP or something to probe that, to grind it down with your customers and investors to get clarity on it. You have to prepare to take more than 6 months, rather 3 years, tough times to prove it. And in your team, you need to have a clarity which is doing what job. And you both lived through that cycle more than once. So I totally trust you. That's the way to go. Whom is the best partner I can get me in that game to get me through it successfully?
Your co-founders.
Your co-founders, Murray?
Yeah, I would say it's your co-founders. They're the ones that absolutely have to stay with you because they've got skin in the game. So that's a really important relationship. And to that point, it's really important to have someone that you don't agree with all the time, because early on, you need to get used to hearing bad news, because the earlier you hear it, the better, because you can do something about it.
Thank you so much for that comment, because that would have been the next question on my list. How do you make sure that you get challenged, that somebody pushes back, that you have the bad news?
I mean, you need to have a very open discussion culture in your company. I mean, if you just have people around you who are saying, "Oh yes, you're the greatest," I mean, then you're lost already. So you need great people. I mean, in your founding team, definitely. And we were 3 founders in our companies. And I mean, sometimes we're really having hard discussions, shouting at each other and saying you're completely wrong and so on. But at the end of the day, we also knew in a startup, at least in our sector, you have to move very fast. So we always said, okay, we discuss a certain amount of time and then we do a decision. And with 3, you always have a majority because you couldn't abstain. You have to have a clear position. And even if it was 2-1, I mean, then we said, okay, then we go this way. And maybe a month later, we realized the other way would have been the best, but then that's also cool. But you need to move.
That is essential. I've used the analogy of an oil tanker. If you can't turn an oil tanker while it's sat still, you have to start it moving, and it doesn't matter what direction you get it moving in, because once it's moving, then you can use the rudder and change course. But if you sat there, it's never gonna happen.
But what do you do in these moments? And I'm just remembering the Hitchhiker Through the Galaxy having this written on it, "Don't panic." So what is it, what you do when you come to this moment of total panic?
I mean, then panic for a moment, but breathe and then start thinking again. I mean, it's also, we don't normally invest in single founder teams. We always invest in teams because there's always the point where somebody's saying, "Oh, we don't crack this problem," or "My energy level is so down," and then there are other people in your founding team who say, "No, we can do this." So I think as a team, the chances are much higher to get through this panic scenarios where you really say we lost it. And on the other side, I mean, if you fail fast. That's always what we're saying, because I mean, it doesn't make sense to invest many years of your lifetime in something that will never fly. So sometimes also you have to face reality.
Murray, what's your Hitchhiker Through the Galaxy moment?
Yeah, I think having the team around you is essential. And that's one of the beauties. If they don't all see the world the same as you do, then they might not be panicking, or they may at least have a different way of framing it, which helps you just to step down a second and go, okay, yeah, maybe I misinterpreted that email or whatever. Maybe they don't mean that, or there's another opportunity. And also, once you've been through a few, in my experience, things are never quite as bad as you first thought. There's often, I mean, it's a very competitive world out there. And so you can go to a conference or you can suddenly hear something and think, oh my goodness, they've solved all the problems that we're trying to solve. There's no point doing anything more. We might as well give up now. But then actually, when you dig under it, it's not quite the case. It's the typical sort of Facebook or Instagram world where everyone puts their best face forward, but under the surface is they're all normal. And I think if you find, yeah, don't throw in the towel yet, let's just keep going, because you might find it's not quite what you thought.
Thank you very much for that idea. Rome wasn't built in a day, and I understand that startups aren't built in a day as well. I have to admit, I would have been always scared to dare to do it, but having listened to you now with all your experience, it feels much more like, yeah, it's a way you have to go. But if you have a great team and a good solution, grind it, work it, build it, test it, discuss it. And you don't have to be a unicorn within 3 weeks, and you haven't failed totally if you don't have a customer within 6 weeks. Yes, move fast, keep moving, have an idea, have a vision, have a great team around you. Now, last question to both of you. Yes, please.
Just wonder if I could add something there, because I think often starting a business is framed from the perspective of making a ton of money. That's the point of it. But the thing that's kept me going through it is I just really, really enjoyed it. The reason I got into digital was this was so interesting. It combined engineering and coding and art to a degree as well, making things look nice and work well. And that's what's kept me going, I think, through the tough times. That the aim hasn't been to get rich quick. It's actually been to try and build a great product that made people's lives better and that I would enjoy using. And I think if you're doing this because you love it, you can deal with the tough times. And I think this is where it gets hard. If you've gone into it to try and make a load of money and you've managed to convince people to come on board with an idea, but internally, actually you just wanted the money. You didn't really care about what you were building. I think that would be really, really stressful. And I'd say don't bother, because I'm sure people like Martin will smoke you out pretty quick.
No, I totally agree. If you're not passionate about what you're doing, if you don't love your product, if you don't love building companies, if you're just in there for the money, then get a consulting job or go to Goldman or whatever. Then you will never be a successful founder.
Thanks a lot for that. And that would be still the trigger for me for my last question. Is you both got kids. What is it, what education or element of education you will give them in order to be prepared for the digital future? Maybe, Martin, you want to start?
They shall be curious. I mean, the curiosity, I think it's the most essential part to become a founder. If you're not curious about new things, about understanding problems, love to talk to people, customers, or your employees, you will never find out what's happening there, and you will never be able to build something.
Great. And how do you teach curiosity?
That's a good question. Less television, less cell phone, and if they want to do something new, be supportive to it. But and always trying to show them things that they have not seen before. Trying to open their minds a little bit, but it's hard. There's no easy way.
Yeah, great. I'll wait for the moment where your kids open your mind. Murray, what do you give your girls?
100% echo curiosity. I just recently did a talk to some final year students, and curiosity was one of the words we used, because it's what's so important is, so I'll say I'll echo curiosity, and I'd add be positive about things. And I think understanding how you respond to things and learning where your blind spots are or in your emotions, and understanding when you need to take yourself off to a quiet room and let something out, because you mustn't let out to your team, because positivity is extremely important. And I think it goes hand in hand with curiosity. And one of the greatest lessons I came across was from the art of improvisation in acting, where people put on plays without a script. And the key to making it work is that you must never close off what the other person offers you. So it's all about the interaction between two people, and someone will say something, and you must always be curious or positive or build on what they've said before. So learning how to take situations and respond with something that's curious, like, oh, well, that's interesting, tell me more, or this sounds like a great idea, I imagine this, is that right? Something. Getting to the bottom of things and opening up discussions takes you to places that you'd never imagined you'll go. Whereas I think if you're negative and you're like, oh, that'll never work. No, if you close stuff down, doors will shut in your face and people won't want to be around you. So you'll never meet, those inspiring people.
That's a fantastic closing, Mark. Thanks a lot to both of you for the discussion. I hope it was inspiring. So if anybody of you got inspired, leave a message in the comments on LinkedIn. Get in contact with us. We are all on LinkedIn. Yeah, let's keep positive. Let's open doors. Let's have ideas. And thank you to a lot for today's talk.
Thanks, Patrick.